Did you know Great Falls is home to an international airport? We're talking with the airport director about how to fly safely and smoothly in and out of Great Falls and ways to find the best deals on tickets. That's coming up on this episode of We're No Damn Experts.
Best damn podcast, the best damn town. You want to get up, get ready to get down. With its big wide sky and the wild river Thames, if you want to go, we can take you there to Great Falls, Montana.
Welcome to the greatest damn town in Montana, Great Falls. I'm Rebecca Ingham.
And I'm Shannon Newth.
And we're No Damn Experts. Today on our illustrious podcast, Shannon, is this after episode 100?
No.
Oh, so
this is episode 98.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So as we near episode 100, we're just gearing everything up.
Yeah, we're
everything's
excited.
getting better. And today is no different. You have the honor.
This podcast is really taking off.
And you'll get that pun after I introduce our guest.
Got excited. Sorry.
Our guest today is the leader of, I'm going to say, one of the prettiest airports in the state of Montana.
100%. Yeah.
Also an avid glacier recreator. So those of you that have suffered through our glacier episodes in the past, you actually have someone who does a lot more in glacier than anyone else we've ever had on the podcast before. So
Well,
you're
good.
welcome. And this guest has also made it a point to add a lot of art into our airport. Great Falls International Airport Director John Faulkner is here today.
Yay.
Thanks.
Welcome, John.
Thank you very much.
So, John, let's start out with the basics. How long have you been in Great Falls?
12 years.
Wow.
Is that all 12 years in your current position?
Yeah, I came here as airport director 12 years ago.
And, just you've done a lot just within the airport structure itself with redesigning of beautiful art installations, getting new partners. Was that always your intent? Like you showed up 12 years ago and you're like, hey, this airport needs more pretties.
Beautiful.
Or was it all driven by more of that, make this a little bit more of an enjoyable experience for the people flying in?
I think it's really important that an airport reflect its community and draw on the things in the community that make the community special. And so that was one of the things I think I even pitched it in my interview that, hey, it'd be great to tell more of the Great Falls story right here because many people that come to our community, particularly those that might be coming from work, they may not have any perceptions of Great Falls until they get here. And so the very first thing they're going to know about our community is what they see. And so as we got the opportunity to remodel, we really wanted to incorporate more of the local community and have more art, have more images of what you do when you recreate in our community, more fixtures that look like our community. And so we've really been able to do that, and we're continuing to do that.
One of the coolest things I think at the airport, the newest coolest thing, is that Discovery Cove area for Lewis and Clark. That is a really neat space. Tell us about that partnership and how that came about. Did they approach you? Did you say, hey, we don't have anything on Lewis and Clark?
And where people can find it in the airport.
Exactly. So that what you're talking about is the little Lewis and Clark display we have. It's actually a kids' play area inside the secure area right across from Alaska and Delta's gate 3 and 4. And we did approach them. We approached most of the museums when we did the remodel and said, we'd really like to incorporate you in here in whatever way that makes sense for you. And we kind of had the idea of a kids' play area redesign. We had an area before that was just a normal play area. And so we approached the museum about would you guys be interested in doing something here that would be more hands-on? And they loved the idea. It took a long time to get it done, as many of these things do. They had to find donors. They had to have a design done, find those materials that are both durable and safe.
Sure.
And integrate those into the design. And so that opened just before COVID. I mean, literally, I think.
Great timing.
Cut the ribbon and then shut it down.
Exactly.
We can't use this for we don't know how long.
Thanks, COVID.
we were all there in masks. I remember, spaced and everything, trying to get a ribbon cutting in, and so that did kind of slow things down. But yeah, we have that, and then we have the Russell displays. We have two pieces of art that were lithographed on the wall that provide people with information about Charlie Russell if they're not familiar. So those are both real exciting.
And that's past security or when you first get off the plane, depending on which direction
if you're coming
going.
in or going out.
Right.
And actually, one of the murals, we kind of strategically placed it. It's actually in the exit lane. So all the people that come up to the airport to wait for someone stand there and look at nothing.
Look at it.
And so we put that mural right in there. And so people stand and look at it.
Yeah.
And so, they're both very visible, and they're both as you walk out of the arriving area. So you see one or both, and we really wanted that to be that way so that people would stop and maybe learn more and maybe plan a visit.
So one of the biggest questions we get, and I always just stare at people when they ask it, is how far away is the airport? And I look at them and I'm like, it's
2 minutes. Yeah.
like, what do you?
Depends on where in town.
And then I have to remind myself, Denver is 35 miles away from the first town.
A lot of them are far out from the
like,
community.
Well, it's not in the center of town, but and so
basically in
try
town.
to show them a map of where that is. Do you find that? Do people ask that do they call and they're like, how far away is the airport from?
No, we don't. We
us.
rarely get that one. That's an interesting question. I mean, we get some other ones that are kind of surprising about, well, I see your daily parking rate is X, but can I stay there longer than a day? That's always one of my favorites.
Oh, and what is your answer?
Well, of course, every night we tow a couple thousand vehicles.
Yeah. We love doing that.
Wouldn't that be funny? Well, you only paid the day rate.
Yeah. Bye-bye vehicle.
Oh, yeah. So you've added, though, from a parking standpoint, the cell phone lot, and I don't know what that is. So could you explain what a cell phone lot is?
Where you go when you want to use your phone,
I guess.
Well, so most airports have that nowadays. And the main idea is to keep people from just sitting on the curb front. Our curb front's fairly small. And in the wintertime, it's hard to tell where the crosswalk is. And so what we were finding is people were parked in the crosswalk. In Great Falls, we drive a lot of larger vehicles. So one day, I think it was Christmas Eve or the day before Christmas Eve, I was out on the curb front and I watched a poor gal with a stroller with a kid, and she was short and no one could see her over the hood of the car that had parked in the crosswalk. And there's more large cars coming, and she's trying to peer out behind a truck to see if she can go. And I thought, man, we got to do something with this congestion. And so I asked our law enforcement officers to really enforce the crosswalk, keep cars out of it. And then we put in that cell phone lot. So the idea is if you're picking someone up, and it's hard to tell if the plane's landed or not, just sit over there. If you get on our website, we actually have an interactive map that shows you where each flight is, or you can FlightAware is a great tool. You can download that. You can see where any flight number is. You can even see if you're planning a trip. You can see if your inbound plane is actually on time or not. So it'll actually get the route before that plane's on and say, nope, it's already 20 minutes late going into Omaha. You're going to be late.
Yeah.
So it's a great tool. And the cell phone lot just gives you a spot to sit. It's beautiful. You can see the Missouri River and all the mountain ranges. You can sit there and just enjoy a minute and look on your cell phone to see if anyone's there, or just tell your friend, hey, call me when you're here, and I'll drive up to the curb front and pick you up. And so that's the idea. But we use it for other things too. We had a food truck up there a couple times this last summer and that kind of thing. So yeah,
that's nice. Yeah. I go and hang out up there often.
It's such a gorgeous spot.
Yeah, a lot of people eat lunch up there.
Yeah,
well, I can see why.
It's beautiful. So it's on the top of, is it included in Gore Hill? Yeah, it's on Gore Hill, which looks basically down over Great Falls. Yeah. It's such a picturesque spot, but you can't park there at night.
No, you can't leave your car unattended.
And you can't.
Generally, they
Pull
won't run
off
you
it?
out if
Okay.
you're waiting. If you're waiting for somebody, it's the pull-offs that are further down
Yeah.
from there that our police are leery about.
Yeah, I've pulled off on there at night. We were just driving. Some family was in town. We were driving around at night to see the view up there, and we like paused to take a picture, and we got asked to move along pretty quickly. But it's a safety thing. I get it.
Yeah.
But just keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Although it's not one of our top attractions, the drive to FedEx is really
It is
pretty.
really gorgeous. Yes.
No, it really is.
Yeah.
It
really
should
is.
be on your
Yeah.
list of things to do. Drive to FedEx,
Turn around,
take
come
a
back.
view,
Yeah.
drive back.
And it is. I mean, having people come here over the years to visit me, that is one of the things I do. Is right away when they land, I'll take them around and just show them that, and I get so
Yeah.
many comments. Wow, what a beautiful spot, and look how pretty the town is. I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah.
it is worth the drive.
So we were talking about art going back inside the airport now on the non-security side. That's not the correct term. On the part where you
The
don't
free
have
area.
to the free walking
range.
about area. There's also basically mini museum of aircraft figurines. I don't know if that's the right word either.
Models.
Thank you. Model aircrafts there. Tell us about that display.
Yeah, so that's the largest die-cast collection in the world. It's actually in the Guinness Book of World Records.
Really?
A portion of that collection is over at Malmstrom. The military portion's over there. And then a lot of the commercial airplanes are here. And then there's even more than that the family still has. And so that collection's the Paletto collection. And he collected them, I think, for 40 years or more, just
Wow.
based on the kind of airplanes that are in there. And it's pretty unique, really, really amazing. And we have 3 display cases of it in the terminal now. And so a lot of people do take the time to kind of look through there, and it brings back a lot of great memories. A lot of people, and we had some visitors in town just a week ago or so, and the one fella had started his career loading planes in New Jersey. And, he was looking at the plane. He's like, oh, we had a Shorts. I didn't even know that anyone would have a model of that.
Oh, cool.
So that really brought back some great memories for him.
Yeah.
So there's different types of planes, and then there'd be different airlines represented as well. And I'm not super old,
No
but
one's saying
even
you are.
in my time frame, there's been airlines that have just disappeared, and not being as connected as like you are, John, with the airline industry. People will remember Continental or TWA, and those are airlines that just don't exist anymore.
Right.
So to be able to see maybe some of those flags on the tail
Yeah.
is kind of cool, because you're like, oh yeah, remember when Northwest was
Nostalgia of the
airline?
airlines. Yeah. For sure. And so speaking of that, with the military component, you also share Airport Hill with the Montana Air National Guard. I'm sure some people have maybe interesting reactions when they're taxiing and then see the big C-130s sitting right next to the airport. What is that like, sharing the runway, sharing the space with the big cargo planes and the military?
Well, frankly, I think it's just a great model, and we ought to do more of that, right? I mean, so the way that works is they're actually our tenant. And they provide fire service, and then we provide the airfield. They're I'd call them an incidental user. Their traffic isn't a huge portion of our daily traffic, but it's a sizable amount. So there really isn't a ton of added cost, but we've got this great infrastructure that they get to use. And so it really is a great model, and the relationship's really great. We help each other out. There's times when they may need a piece of equipment, or we may need a piece of equipment, or we may need a little help doing something. Obviously we do a lot of collaborative things together, like the air show. They're primary planner, and then of course we provide service to help with that. And so I think it's just a fantastic model. We really love having them on our airfield and being able to help with that. And they bring a great life to the airport with all the activity they have that otherwise, would be much quieter if they weren't around.
So they used to have the fighter jets. Now it's the C-130 cargo planes, which are big, heavy planes. When they switched missions, does the runway require something different than a regular airport because those C-130s are using it? Did you have to upgrade anything with the runways?
Great question,
Yeah,
Shannon.
not really. The C-130, because of what it is, it's an exceptionally flexible airplane, and so it's made to take off on short fields.
Yeah.
And so,
Which is impressive.
right?
Yeah.
But it can't really use an arrestor barrier because it's so heavy, and it also can reverse its engines, which they do if they really need to stop quickly. And so, that plane had more capability in many ways than the fighters. The fighters required an arrestor barrier, so we used to have arrestor barriers, which the Air Force removed.
What is that? Is that so they don't go flying off the hill?
Yeah, it's like a tail hook.
Okay.
They have a hook on the tail of the plane, and then there's a
Yeah.
massive cable that they can spring up in the air.
Top Gun.
Like you see in Top Gun.
Right.
Okay.
And so we had that for a while. And the interesting thing about that is the default, if like lost power or something, was up, which always scared the cats out of me.
No kidding.
I always thought the default should be down.
Right? Yeah. Going back up does not seem like the best, but yeah.
But the C-130, it does have a couple special training requirements. We happened to be redoing our small runway right when they got that assignment. And so from the very onset, we asked them, look, do you guys want some covert lighting? Which is a special kind of lighting they use for landings. And so I happened to have known that from Colorado Springs when I was down there because we also had C-130s. And it took them a while to kind of figure out if that was something they needed, because it was a new airplane. And eventually they did decide that. And so we were able to install some special lights in there that allow them to simulate an unimproved landing.
Oh, sure.
So, they could go anywhere
Part
in
of
the
their
world.
training.
Exactly. And they could deploy an airfield with these lights and then land on it. And so, we wanted them to have that training requirement. So we were able to incorporate it in the project and get it done.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I tell people, and I have no idea what it means.
She does this where she just says things and then hopes it's true. Tries to
We'll
clarify.
visit with people on meetings and conventions, and they're like, oh, I don't want to fly into Great Falls in the winter because it's so cold. And I just tell them, I'm like, we have a Category 3 runway.
We can handle it.
And so they look at me and like, oh, okay. And most of the time,
No one knows what that means.
including me, most of the time
Say
people
that
are
to
just
sound
like,
authoritative.
that calms them, and they're like, oh, well, that's great. And everybody goes on about their day. I am afraid of the day someone's like, what does that mean? So, John, we have a Category 3 runway. What does that
First
mean?
off, is that true? And it's like,
I'm pretty sure it's still true.
Yeah. No, it is true. And so what that is, it's a special set of lighting and instrument approaches. So like GPS fixes, signals that are sent out from the runway that enable the plane to land in extremely low visibility conditions. Because of the environment up there and some of the restrictions that things that protrude into the airspace and stuff, theoretically you could land all the way at zero visibility. In our case, you need 300 feet of visibility to land the airplane, which is exceptionally low. In some airports, if you don't have any approach equipment at all, you can only do it when there's a visual approach, which you can actually see the runway from a certain distance and the glide slope and land. In our case, you can do that all with instruments. So if your pilot is trained, and not all commercial airlines train their pilot to that standard, and if your plane is equipped, and not all airlines equip their airplane to that standard, then you can land in exceptionally low visibility up there, which is a great recruiting tool, from around the area. And also, when we have big weather events that cover the entire state, we'll see diversions, particularly like Calgary oftentimes will divert down because they have a lot of larger planes that are equipped and pilots that are trained. And so if they're getting freeze fog or something, we'll see them stop into our place if there's a big weather system over the entire region. And so, it's the biggest users for us are probably FedEx and Alaska. Most of their pilots are trained and their airplanes are equipped. And so those are the primary users.
See?
Good
What
job.
are other categories? Is there a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Like how many categories are there?
Exactly. So there are 3. And
there you
so there is like a 3+. You can have an ASDX, it's called, which is like a ground radar where you can see everything on the ground.
Fancy.
And that would keep anybody from running each other on the ground. And so that would be an improved. We don't have that, but like I believe Seattle might have that.
That makes sense.
But 3 is the best category you can get in terms of approach.
Nice.
There's a 1 and 2, and so basically it's kind of components. We have the in-pavement lighting system to direct a plane on a safe course. So once they land on the ground, they'll pick up the lighting and they can follow that to a safe place to park. And so those types of things get you to a full 3. You have to have an approach that basically an instrument that shoots an approach out into space, and as the airplane comes into your airspace, it crosses that signal and follows that signal to the landing point. So you have to have that. But if you just had that, then you would have a Category 1. A category 2 is an improvement on that. And then when you get to category 3, you have both vertical and horizontal types of indicators plus a lighting system that gets them entirely, to their final destination.
We're no dinky airport. We have fancy things here. Yeah.
We're an international airport.
We are an international airport.
And maybe you don't fly commercial. Maybe you live the life where you can just fly your own jet in or personal plane. I don't want to go so extravagant. Like, it doesn't have to be a G7. Right. Is that what the singers all sing about? But you could also do like a Piper Cub.
Cessna, Mooney. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So how
at Holman Aviation. There's also Holman Aviation.
How
there.
does that work with commercial flights and everything else that happens at the airport if I want to bring my G7 into Great Falls?
So today we have two, what's called a fixed-based operator, FBOs, and those folks primarily handle the private airplanes. And so there's one at either end of the airfield. There's Holman Aviation, and then there's Front Range Aviation, which recently changed their name to Great Falls Jet Center.
Okay.
And so
That's
you may have heard Front
one,
Range.
maybe?
It's now Great Falls Jet Center. No, not particularly.
Okay.
They both have really large hangars. In fact, the one down at Front Range, or now should say Great Falls Jet Center, it can hold up to two 737s. And
wow.
Two 737s at the same time.
At the same time.
So when you have your own private 737, there you go.
Let's just focus on the G7.
Okay.
Which I thought was a Pontiac for the longest time. Like when people were singing, but I'm like,
why are they singing about a Pontiac?
I don't think it could be a Pontiac, like G6. Maybe that's what it was. Okay. Yeah. Back to your story.
But you can land your private plane there, and of course they'll fuel it, and they can hangar it. They'll provide cleaning and all the services that you might want. And then we have customs, down at that end too. So we average. People don't realize two international flights a day on average. Come through Great Falls. Primarily, it's people from Canada coming down in their private plane, going into the U.S., and they drop in here. The fuel is cheaper, so they often fuel up and clear customs, and then go on to whatever town they're trying to get to.
Yeah. I have, real quick, I want to go back inside the terminal next to the plane exhibits and the models. There's also taxidermied stuffed animals. Yes, that await you either, as either greeting you or welcoming you home. I've seen people in there, being from here. I'm like, oh, there's a bear, whatever. Yeah. But people take selfies with this bear. Tell us, then there's the mountain lion as well, but specifically about this bear, because it tends to get selfies and pictures taken of it. Tell us about the bear that's in there.
Yeah, there's a large grizzly. It's an Alaskan bear, because of course you can't hunt grizzlies in the lower 48. So it's an Alaskan bear that was taken by a local person, and of course it's enormous, and so I imagine they just ran out of space.
Yeah.
Right, standing up, and it's in a case. And so I probably have taken at least 1,000 pictures for people. I see them out there trying to get their selfie with their family, and so I'll take their picture. But it's one of the biggest attractions over there. I see people reading the plaque or looking at it or photographing it. Yeah. It is very much captures the imagination of people, and we love that. I mean, that's one of the great things about our community. Even though that's not a local bear, we have this amazing wildlife that everybody wants to come see, and that's it gets them primed for their visit to Great Falls, and or it gets them interested in coming back. I mean, so many people. I used to be a consultant. I was on the road every week, and you get to a community and you would only see the airport and maybe out the windshield of the taxi. Yeah. And you'd wonder, wow, I wonder what there is to do here. And so when you come to a community like ours and you see those types of images, and it whets your appetite for more. And so that's I can't tell you the number of people I've seen frantically running around the terminal trying to collect literature, get some pictures, and then I'll see them and I'll ask them a few questions, and they'll want to ask me, well, where can I go hike? Where can I go fish? Where can I go? And so you try to quickly answer those questions, and you always get the promise they'll be back, and I hope they do come back, because we have such a great community. So
absolutely,
yeah. So talking about hiking, and you didn't mention this, but kayaking and floating and all these fun outdoor recreations. One of the things people often do is fly into Great Falls, and then they'll drive up to Glacier, the east entrance. The east side's the best side. Yep. Can't say it enough. East side's the best side. And even with this reservation system, east side's still the best side. Yeah. Yep. So tell us, you are up there often. You recreate in Glacier I think more than anyone in this room.
Any human,
So what can you do there? Hiking, kayaking,
everything.
floating.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so
see a grizzly. That's
exactly.
not taxidermied. Yeah.
It was probably 20 years ago I came to Glacier for the first time. I was living in Seattle working for the airport out there and happened to come over Labor Day weekend and I actually got chased by a grizzly on that trip. So
oh my gosh, and you still decided to move here.
A real Lewis and Clark moment for them.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
But on the way home from that trip, my wife and I at the time said, hey, I mean, wouldn't it be amazing to live close to that? And, that thought was in our head for a lot of years. And so I went down to Colorado Springs. I worked there for 4 or 5 years. And I knew the recruiter that had this position up here. And they called me. I was back in Ohio for Christmas where I'm from. And said, hey, we've got this job up in Montana. Would you be interested? And so I'm fumbling in the backseat for my father-in-law's atlas. Like, Great Falls, Great Falls, Great Falls.
Where's Great Falls?
And so I get the map open and I look and I see off to the the left side of the map there, hey, look, there's Glacier. And so I said, well, absolutely, I'd be interested. And so, then the rest is history. And so I am up there a lot. And we really try to take advantage of everything in that park. I mean, an itinerary for us on the weekend, we'll haul a raft up there and camp, and it's 2.5 hours right to East Glacier, and you're right there. And so maybe Friday we'll try to get a jump on Friday and get up there by dark, and and get our raft up there. We'll raft Saturday and then hike on Sunday. And you're right. The reservation system only impacts one of the east side entrances. The west side, all of them are now under reservation.
Yep.
On our side, there's 2 entrances that aren't. And so my sister was just up a few months ago, and we went in. We had a nice hike in Mini Glacier, which does not require a reservation. We got out. I looked at my watch and said, hey, you know what? It's 4 o'clock. We should run up to Logan Pass because after 4 o'clock, you can go back in the park.
Yeah.
And so I took her up to Logan Pass. We saw some mountain goats up there, came back down, had dinner, and we're back in Great Falls that night. I mean, we day trip that park pretty often. We'll camp up there. And the drive is so easy. I mean, people don't realize how easy. There's no mountain passes. It's mostly interstate.
Yeah.
Then you're on state highway. No traffic, and really it's a very easy way to see the park. And, our side is so much cheaper than coming in on the west side. Rental cars, hotels, it's a much more affordable way to get to the park.
Absolutely.
And, we haven't even mentioned it. We're into our podcast a few minutes, and Great Falls International Airport has been historically the lowest cost airfare in the state of Montana. Correct?
Yeah, we for quite a period there. I think from about 2014 all the way until 2018, we were the lowest average airfare in the state. Since COVID, primarily. 19, we were like $2 off, I think. But since COVID, that story has gotten more difficult. Everybody
a lot has gotten more difficult.
Well, right.
Yeah. Well, not just for us, as also
across the board.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's been very tumultuous, and a lot of airports lost air service during that. Even in Montana, a lot of airports have lost air service. Like, for instance, Frontier left. In fact, they just announced they're leaving the last airport in Montana. So they left, I think, 3 or 4 airports in that period. And so during that period, everyone lost something, primarily. And so that has really reshuffled the deck. And we were extremely short on seats a year ago. That's been largely remedied now. So the pricing looks much better now. But we're still hoping to add more.
And a lot of that is out of your control. I mean, it's a whole across the board, a lot of factors that go into that.
A lot of supply and demand.
Pilots.
Yeah. So what airlines do fly into Great Falls International?
So right now we have Delta. They're flying 3 a day to Salt Lake. United flies twice a day to Denver. Alaska flies once a day to Seattle. And then Allegiant has Phoenix and Las Vegas, both those about twice a week. And that comes and goes up and down, sometimes more than that, sometimes less.
And there have been rotations where certain airlines will do seasonal one way, like to Chicago or something like that as well, correct?
Right. Last summer we had Chicago on Saturday only. We're hoping that'll build back into the market. We were up to daily right before COVID. And in fact, even in December, prior to COVID, they had it loaded daily for the summer. And then, of course, when COVID happened, they pulled it out. And So yeah, the service does change. In fact, even just this month, the airport now is a completely 76-seat market. All of our 50s are now gone, and we've been talking about that for a number of years, but it's now upon us. And so, at the end of the month, we'll be all 76-seat airplanes.
Well, that's exciting. We still have all that service and a
an
76
increased capacity
plane. Now, you told us 20 years ago you were chased by a bear.
And you still came back.
That's not a normal occurrence because you've been back to Glacier a number of times. How many times have you been chased by a bear since then?
Well, once chased, and then I had one pretty close to me stand up and give me a good look, and I was kind of in a dead end spot, and I was afraid it was going to come after me, and fortunately it didn't. It looked at me for quite a while. It seemed like forever, and then decided it was going to go do whatever it was doing.
You didn't look too appetizing.
No.
Okay. Yeah. Thank goodness.
Thank goodness.
Was that a grizzly that time too?
Also a grizzly. Yeah.
Okay. What is your bear aware advice then for if you spend a lot of time in Glacier? Obviously, the more you go, the more chances you have to run into a bear. But what do you do, or why do you think that bear decided that you didn't look so appetizing?
It's a good question. I think their eyesight's pretty poor. So I mean, I don't think he really knew what I was, and so I think mainly he was just curious more than anything, and then resumed whatever he was busy doing before he saw me. And in that case, I just started backing away and trying to give him as much space as possible. Just not letting him know I wasn't a threat of any kind. And I think that's really good advice. I also like to double bag my food. So I'll put a Ziploc over a Ziploc, don't want to give him any indication that I've got anything to eat. I think that's really important too. And carry protection. I mean, I don't, years ago, I just decided I'm not going in the park anymore without, some bear spray because I have kids now. And, I think that's really important. And then, be aware of groups, if you can kind of connect with other people and have a bigger group. I mean, that really, the first time I got chased, I think that's really what helped us was we bumped into more people. And then as we continued to retreat back up the trail, we bumped into even more people. I think we ended up with a group of 9. And finally the bear just decided that wasn't anything he wanted to pursue, I think, more than anything. And so, I mean, if you can hike with a group or, make sure you're on a trail during times when there's somebody else there, I think that's really good too.
For sure.
And be a little bit noisy. We hiked, we did 7 days in the Bob Marshall Wilderness Complex. It was absolutely amazing.
Wow.
But one of the things we constantly did was have conversations or, bells that we would be on our shoes. But we followed a bear for 3 days of that, which is unnerving.
Intentionally?
Well, he was on the trail. We were on the trail. He wasn't going off the trail. We weren't going off the trail. So there was a lot of, you do run out of things to say to people at some point because our group was fairly small. We were in the Bob quite a ways. So my tip was sing the Oscar Mayer Wiener song on repeat. Everyone can join in.
Or
make it a round.
99 bottles of beer on the wall. Takes a while.
So we always made sure the bear knew where we were because we didn't know necessarily where they were. So always good. But we also bear spray.
Yeah.
You
don't
really
want to startle them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not the only wildlife you'll find, but one of the things we often hear when people come back from Glacier is, well, we wanted to see wildlife and we didn't see anything. Well, that happens too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can be chased by a grizzly or see nothing.
And there are ways you can increase that potential too. I mean, out on Genuine, Montana, we've got a wildlife watching guide that'll kind of give you some hot spots and the times of year. I think if you know the hot spots, in our area, I mean, it's almost, I'd say more than likely that you're going to see certain animals. I mean, moose, bighorn down in the canyon right south of town here. I mean, your chances are pretty good if you know where to go.
Yeah. The drive to and from, Glacier, you can see a lot potentially as well.
And these tips on how to stay safe in the outdoors don't just apply to Glacier because you spend time on the Dearborn River as well. And I think you kayaked the Dearborn too.
I have kayaked the Dearborn once.
Rafting and an epic journey that
it was an epic journey in early June. They're 8 hours long, very little actual not paddling involved. I mean, not major there was a few spots of some more intense rapids, but enough where I couldn't just sit and relax. I had to be actively paddling the whole time. But
because we don't necessarily have a lot of what people will consider whitewater rafting in our area, but there are areas that you'll get your heart rate up going through some
I was
areas.
sore.
Do you have a favorite story of your experience on the Dearborn?
Oh, yeah. I've only gotten to do it a few times because the season is exceptionally short. You get like 3 weeks and you better go then or it's just out of water. And so, but last year we were coming down the river and I looked up ahead. I could see something was in the river. And as I got closer, it was a moose. and that river really isn't much wider than
Oh my gosh.
a 2-lane road.
Yeah.
So the moose was walking up the river the other way, a little bowl, and we squeezed by him on the left, and in your head you're wondering, is he going to try to get in? I mean, what's going to happen?
Or are you going to get like kicked?
Right, and but he didn't really care. He let us go by, and then he got to a little island over there and was eating some willows. But yeah, that was awesome.
Wow.
I mean, to get to go right past an animal in its nature like that.
Yeah,
and
once you're safely past, like, wow, that was a neat experience. Yeah.
And I happened to be with a Great Falls teacher. I won't say who, but I was with a Great Falls teacher, and they took a video, right? And so the first day of school, they were showing some kids the video, and a kid pulled out his phone and said, "I was on the river that same day," and he had a grizzly bear on video crossing the river on the Dearborn. I'm like, wow,
Holy cow.
So yeah, you can see about anything out there apparently.
Yeah, I did not see any of that. I saw like swallows, some birds, but I didn't
some
see
eagles.
any of
There's
that.
some great eagle watching on that river too.
It's beautiful.
Oh, it's so
I mean,
pretty.
there's areas where you're going through
canyons.
I mean, it's just a stunning place.
Parts
to
of
kayak.
it you would think you were in Utah. I mean,
Yeah,
it's so windy. I mean, it's really a beautiful river. It is a long one though. It's like 19 miles.
It's a long day.
Yeah.
It's a long day, but I mean, at least for me. But that was the first time I was on the Dearborn. Well, kayaking on the Dearborn. Yeah, it's beautiful. You haven't done the Dearborn, right?
No, Water and me aren't.
Oh yes, we've discussed this.
We're not real strong friends there, but I've hiked up in along the Dearborn.
Yeah.
Going up to the school of the wilderness that's up there. There's a great trailhead just beyond
Towards
that.
Augusta there?
Yeah. In south area. But you hike up in there. Ear Mountain is the hike, and the water there is so gorgeous. Just it's that turquoise, and it's like a little canyon. Like you have to walk over and peer down into it in some of those spots. And I don't know if I've ever shared it on the podcast, but we were up there one time, had the dog with me, and it was a lab. He got all excited, jumped into the water, and I was probably on day 5 of we were doing just day hikes out of Great Falls because my aunt was with me, and we've decided that based on her age, we're not going to do backpacking trips anymore. So it's all day hikes, which Great Falls is fantastic for that.
Right. There's a lot of options.
So we were on day 5, not a lot of sleep, not a good thing for me. The dog went for a swim. I freaked out, dropped everything to jump into the water and save him. And then while I was getting into the water to save him, he was on the shore looking at me like, hey mom, what's
what are you doing? Going for a swim?
Oh, yeah. Animals can get out on their own again. But absolutely stunning. Just a bunch of gorgeous pictures. It's one of those areas where I just love taking pictures of because so pretty. But no, never been in a kayak or paddleboard or raft on that water.
Wait, the story that we told on my very first podcast, I think, where you were trying to get in, was that a canoe?
That was a kayak.
Okay.
But it was at Newland in a lake.
So you attempted to get in a kayak. Okay.
I did. It did not work well at all. I'll get there. I'm stubborn enough.
Goals.
I will get there.
Next summer.
Yeah. What other areas do you explore, John, when you're not running the airport?
I mean, we love that kayak from just this side of Craig up to Mountain Palace. You just see so many incredible things and tons of eagles on that route. It's really nice to if you can go in the evening. One night I think we counted like 12 beavers.
Oh my gosh.
And it's really fun to chase them a little bit because they'll slap their tail,
Get
make
away.
a big
It's like
splash.
they sound like angry
oh yeah,
animals.
well, and if you're not paying attention, it's like someone shooting a cannon at you.
With the slapping noise. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, that's such a beautiful area. We really love that little float. And we do a lot of whitewater rafting. We really like the Flathead. On our side of Glacier, kind of Bear Creek down to Paola Creek there. That's just an incredible water, like you said. I mean, on a hot day, that's just the perfect thing to go do.
Yeah.
It's such a nice float. And we do it every year on the 4th of July. It's kind of our annual tradition.
Nice.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and most of the times, I mean, you get within 20, 30 yards of a goat down there on the river with the babies. They'll be down there messing around, and so I mean, it's just like the perfect 4th of July activity, and so. We love that area, and then cross country skiing. I mean, wintertime for me, I love climbing up behind Dead Man's Hill across from Kings Hill. That's a great little winter route. You can climb up there. The one that goes down to Belt called O'Brien Creek. Oh my gosh, what a great little trail that is. And and so winter times here are fantastic too. There's so many great areas to explore.
There is.
And for some reason, not as many people want to come and recreate in the winter as they do in the summer.
Right.
So,
There
lower
are still,
prices, more availability, really a
if
great
you don't want to
opportunity.
pay a lot to stand in a line somewhere for a lift ticket, this is your place to come. Yeah.
So, John, we had Roland Taylor on the podcast a while ago, and he shared about his kayak trip down Belt Creek in like the raging moments. Have you ever kayaked Belt Creek?
No, I'm afraid of Belt Creek. Yeah,
I don't know about this.
I've looked at Belt Creek many times and thought I'm not getting in there.
Really?
Yeah, after the story Roland shared, we had to caveat the whole thing with this was an abnormal time of year, and please be smart about what you do. And
Is it? I don't know about Belt Creek.
Yeah.
So in the
I
springtime,
mean, I know it exists. I don't know about kayaking on it. Yeah.
It runs a few hundred CFS, so it actually runs hard.
Yeah.
And I have a friend that's done it. He does it every year, and so I asked him about it, and he said, "Well, you have to take a chainsaw because there's so many trees." And one time I dropped my chainsaw in the river and lost it. And then you also have to be mindful of all the bridges crossing for driveways, I guess.
Yeah.
And so he said you have to be careful because some of those are so low you may have to even walk around them if the river's that high.
Oh my gosh.
And so when he got through the litany of things that the trials and tribulations, it sounded like something out of the Homer rather than something I wanted to do.
I think we won't do that.
It also terrifies me that there's a chainsaw just at the bottom of the river somewhere, because I would be the one to step on it if I was trying to get out of my kayak or something.
I'm sure
oh my
it's
gosh.
deep enough.
I think he went back and got it the next weekend.
good.
But
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Because the
usually
water
not.
ebbs and flows. It'll drop a little bit and
Yeah.
then you can see it with ease.
That part's terrifying to me, is that there's chainsaws on the bottom of these rivers. Yeah, it's creeks. It's terrifying.
It's fine.
That's the part that scares me about this story.
I've gone out to Malmstrom Air Force Base, visited with outdoor recreation before, getting people excited to be stationed here and all the outdoor recreation that's here. And all of them are like, well, can you die? You can die. But that's not a normal occurrence. You're just going to have to be smart about it.
Right.
So there's always that question. People are like, well, I'm not going to do anything in the outdoors because it'll eat me. It'll make me rashy.
Every day in everything you're doing, you encounter that potential, really. I mean,
but that's why we encourage you to know what you're supposed to be doing.
Correct. Do some research ahead of time so you know what to expect.
Yeah.
And you know what you should have with you. Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yes. And that there's a lot of places you don't have cell service, so you need to be prepared for that too.
So people always want to know, we got a lot of deal seekers in the world. People are like, what are the discounts? What are the tips and the tricks of the trade and the secrets? Do you have any advice for people who are looking to book flights into Great Falls that might make them more excited to pull the trigger and get here and have fun?
Or the times, days, things like that are best?
Since the pandemic, the times and days is less of a factor because the business travel has really died off.
Okay.
But what you do see is people are more flexible with their leisure travel. So where you never saw children in the airport during school times a year prior to pandemic, now every day there are children coming and going, because some of them are on flexible schedules. Some of them might even be now homeschooled or the schools are more understanding of time away, and there's more online ways to catch up. So the days a week is less of an issue anymore. Times a year are still really important. January and February are the slow times of year, and so you can usually find best airfares then. Book early, right, because flights do sell out, and the way it works is the airlines have so many cheap seats on a plane, and as those are sold, then the price continues to go to the next bucket, and then when those are sold, it goes to the next bucket, and that's kind of how it works. So as soon as you can book a flight, if you know it's coming, get out there and book it. But the biggest tip I've been giving lately is, use Google Flights to find your airfare. And the reason for that is it has all the airlines on there. It will mix and match occasionally. So if you were going to, say, Florida, it might put you on United to Denver, and then maybe Frontier to Florida. As a way to bring that airfare down. But the other thing it does is it shows you about 6 weeks of days, individual days, and the price per day. And so you can go on there and say, oh, well, if I leave on Tuesday instead of Monday, I can get a very good ticket price, and then I'll match that with coming back on a Saturday that has a good ticket price, and that'll get me the best overall fare. And that's really important, particularly in a small market, because if you think about it, in our market, on any given day, a family reunion, or maybe the Argos are playing out of town, any of those things, we're such a small market that those things might use up all of the cheap seats.
Oh, sure.
And so if you just wait a day, you might get a much better airfare. And so that one, the Google Flights has all kinds of interesting tools. Like, I want to be gone for a month in the month, a week in the month of February. You can kind of tell it that search. I'm trying to go to Costa Rica. I want to be there a week, and I want to do it in February. And so you can tailor that to go and find those best airfares for the entire month, meeting those parameters. So it really has some very powerful tools, and that's what I've been telling people. Use that one. Yeah. And then, if you find the airfare you want and the airline you want to use, you can go on that airline site and book it. You can book it right from there. And the other thing I like about Google Flights is most of the time it takes you directly to the airline website. When you say, I want that ticket, it doesn't try to do it on their engine. You're not actually paying Google. It'll actually take you to the airline site. So it's a really great tool for finding those good deals, when you have some flexibility in your plans.
Interesting. Okay. Google Flights.
So, not that you're going to be an expert on this, but I'm going to ask the question anyway. We work with a service all the time with media who are looking to write stories. And the stories they're always looking to write is about travel insurance. And I would have never guessed there's that many articles that ever need to be written about travel insurance. Do you encourage, should people buy travel insurance? Is that something people do? I don't. I mean,
I'll be honest, I never have.
Yeah.
But I can understand why you would. And where I think it's a valuable tool, if you have a cruise or something where you absolutely have to hit a timeline, they're not going to hold that boat for you. In those instances, I think it's probably worth it because, across the entire nation, we all see the stories right now. The labor is so short. It's not just pilots, flight attendants, even mechanics. And so when something happens, and as we all know, things happen in our daily lives every day, and a flight gets canceled, the flights are so full, they don't have another seat to put you on.
Yeah.
So you may be there for a day or two in some of these hub cities, during high peak times of year. And if you miss a trip like that, you're going to regret it. And so if you have that big trip planned and your plans are inflexible, you have some event you're attending, like, a concert or, a cruise or something that's time definite, then I think there is a good place for that because there is so much chaos in the system right now. And then none of us can control the weather, right? I mean, that overlay all of what I just said with,
weather.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, those things are completely out of your control. And so there is a place for it. And if you are planning that great big trip and something could get sidelined, it's not a bad idea.
Okay.
That's, knowledgeable people sharing knowledgeable things.
Yes.
Things I would have never thought of.
Yeah. So if someone's flying into Great Falls, they've never been to Montana, they've never been to Great Falls, what can people expect? I mean, we talked about some of the things that welcome them in the terminal, but it's a fairly small airport. It's easy to navigate, but what can they expect if they're going to get off the plane, go rent a car, go to baggage claim?
Yeah.
And what's the process for a brand new person to Great Falls?
Yeah, I mean, as you're coming into Great Falls, we are an exceptionally small airport. And so I always tell folks, take your time, grab a snack at the at the restaurant there, go to the bathroom, because it literally takes you about 90 seconds to walk from the gate area to bag claim. And so if you compare that to flying into, say, Denver, I always tell people, take a look at your watch when they open the door of your plane. It's going to take you 30 to 40 minutes to make your way to bag claim. So what people notice in Great Falls is you get down to bag claim and it takes them 20 minutes. To get your bag. Well, of course it does, because you've just walked for 90 seconds.
Right, you're right. They're not that fast.
Right.
The people are still out there trying to get their job done.
Yes.
There are some truisms about airplanes. The bottom belly is only big enough for one person to go in and one person to get the bag from the one guy that went in. So there's a definite amount of time it takes to unload a plane at every airport, no matter what. And and at those larger airports like SeaTac or something like that, they're getting the big advantage because you're taking so long to get to bag claim, 20, sometimes 40 minutes. You ride a train, you ride a bus, whatever it is you're doing to get back to bag claim. At our airport, you're not doing it.
Right.
So take your time, enjoy the art,
There's no rush.
Grab a map. I mean, right there we have a little information booth right in bag claim that has some terrific maps. There's a really nice regional one that shows you pretty much the entire center part of the state. And grab a map, grab some brochures, people always love the real estate magazines. Grab one of those, and then just give it a minute to kind of wait for that that bag to come. And I always like to hear, you look around that bag claim, you're going to see some hunters, you're going to see some fishermen, you're going to see some hikers, and I always like to kind of absorb the energy of those folks, because I remember my first time to Montana, and it just is, it's an incredible place. And so, that's always fun to look around and see, what are these people doing? Why are they coming? Especially if this is your community. I mean, that's a source of pride for us that, all these people are having these unique lifetime experiences right here.
Absolutely.
And, so that's another thing I find it fun, because some of those people are actually looking for some advice, right? Can I drive that road in the winter? Is it even open?
Right. Yep.
And, where can I find some fishing lures at work? So, be open to talking to some of those folks, because, a lot of times they are, I always, I look for Ohio t-shirts because I'm from there, and but I'll look for a reason to start a conversation with somebody. Oh, what are you in town for? And they're so excited, if they're getting to do something like that in our community. So, take a minute to visit with them, and you'll still have time. Your bag will be there in a minute.
Yeah.
Our first guest today stopped in, and they're like, well, we usually drive through Great Falls, but today we're stopping. We're going to be here for 3 days. I'm like, well, that seems like a long stop. Well, they're headed up towards Augusta to do once-in-a-lifetime hunt for elk. And I said, well, that's pretty exciting,
Yeah.
So we visited with them. They were from Tennessee. But one of the things that we often hear is that people in Great Falls are friendly. I don't know. Again, I'll say it every time. I don't know where you're from, where people are mean, but come here. We're nice.
Yeah. Yep. Talk to you.
And we'll share some information. But people come from all over for those once in a lifetime experiences, and it could be you.
It could be you. Anytime. Well, hop on sooner rather than later to get the best deal. But so if you're renting a car, you just walk another few steps from baggage claim over to those kiosks or the arrangements.
Yeah, that's right. And like I said, a lot of times you have a few minutes for your bag. So, oftentimes you can just walk over there and get your rental car while you're waiting on your bag, because you can see the bag claim from, you could throw a book at it. It's not very far. So, get your rental car. The rental cars are right outside, within 50, 60 feet. Most of those rental cars are right there. It's really easy, and so it's a very easy airport to use.
No bus necessary to get to your rental car.
No moving walkways. We don't even have a moving walkway.
No.
And the other thing that's nice about that is when you come back to fly out, you don't have to,
oh my gosh, drop it off somewhere else, then try to figure out. Yeah.
You drop it off there and walk in the building. That's it.
Yep.
Are we seeing rental car shortages like a lot of other places, or high demand for those right now?
In fact, I was just talking about this yesterday at our board meeting. The shift in Great Falls at the airport has the market has shifted to inbound significantly. We're seeing fairly stagnant parking growth, but pretty significant rental car growth. Yes, there has been a shortage. From time to time, we don't have any cars. That is improving. because more of the manufacturers are producing more of the cars. Also, we acted quickly to tell the rental cars, look, if it has 60,000 miles on it, it's fine. I would rather have a car with 60,000 miles than having to Uber for the next week and a half.
Right.
So we've acted quickly to tell them, keep the car another year if you have to. That's fine. We need transportation, and so they've done a really good job. I mean, most days somebody has cars. Not always the same company, but most days someone has some, and so it has been short. But we're seeing record numbers of cars. I mean, the rental cars of this year are going to have another record year. So even though traffic's down about 20-30%, so.
Yeah. I know I encountered when I flew recently to go see family elsewhere and had to rent a car that was I hadn't realized before my trip that rental cars were you can't get them sometimes, so I didn't realize that had been a problem, but it's a lot of places are seeing that. Yeah.
And another option in our market, we just signed, we're just signing a deal with Turo, Turo. So if we're out of rental cars, you can always check them, and that's private cars that can be rented. It's kind of like an Uber without the driver.
Okay.
You rent a private car through their website, and then the app takes care of everything.
Okay.
Or like an Airbnb for cars.
Yeah. Okay. Good to know.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
I'm gonna get some stuff on there. People will be surprised. They'll be like, "Oh my goodness!" It'll be one of those moments
I was
where
expecting.
they be like, "Who decides to rent these things?" And we're like, "No, more importantly, who decides to put this available for rent?" And when I drop it off for them, I'll be like, "Who decides to rent something like this?"
Yeah, this is on you for choosing it.
But let me tell you, you can go up to Yogo Peak and you won't have any problems with this.
So yours is for a specific audience, for a
Very
specific traveler.
specific.
Yes.
It's going to be a very narrow group of
That's
people
okay.
that'll be interested in my stuff. Well, that's excited.
Yeah.
And Uber and Lyft are qualified people to show up in addition to our taxi services.
Service.
And why I share that is it's not like sometimes they can just show up. You do have to have like permission or agreements with the airport for those things to happen.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
There you go.
I learned stuff and then I share it.
That's what we're for. So when people go to leave, either if they drive to Great Falls to fly out or they've come and then are getting ready to leave, what kind of time frame should people plan for Great Falls? And then TSA process, I mean, is it still take the shoes off, take the bat, same standard process there?
Yeah, more or less. I mean, there are some changes, and it's important people know them. We still recommend 2 hours.
Okay.
And the reason for that is, now we have larger planes. And the planes, interestingly, because it's the shift has happened where business travel is down in Great Falls, and that's been filled with more leisure travel, and particularly more inbound. And so what we're seeing is the busy time of day has shifted from, like 5 to 6 a.m., the busy time of day is now mid-afternoon because that's when all the flights come in with the people that left early somewhere else. And so, interestingly, the time of day that's busy now is that mid-afternoon period. And so the lines have gotten long, at times because every single airline, even Allegiant now, has a departure in kind of that 1:30 to 3 o'clock block.
Okay.
And so, in particular, in that time of day, we're seeing some fairly long lines. We are switching right now to private screening from TSA. That'll happen next week. So there's also going to be a learning curve as we get that done. So we really recommend be there 2 hours early. The process, other than that, is pretty easy. Our airport's very small. If you can check in online ahead of time, that's always an advantage. Go ahead and get your online check-in the night before on your phone. Get that done. If you have to drop a bag, just go to the counter. We are rebuilding the counters right now. That will happen over the next year, so you can expect a little bit of construction delay in there. Again, that's why we recommend 2 hours. And so, it's a really easy process. Our parking lot's not very far away. We have for a week of parking, no one's cheaper in the entire state. You can park in Value Park for $25 for a whole week, $7 a day. If you park in our main lot, it's $35 a whole week, $7 a day.
Yeah, a lot of places that would be a daily fee,
exactly.
not a weekly fee.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's very affordable. Go ahead, park there. Come on in. Get through that security line, and then we have food both pre-security and post-security. So post-security in there's a really nice bar you can sit at and look out the window.
Yeah,
it's really
pretty views
really
from
pretty.
there.
Absolutely.
Really pretty view. I flew down to Vegas, participated in the bar experience. at the airport.
Before you left?
Before
Yeah.
we left. I was a responsible person, though. I didn't have too many because I've
Yeah.
been on those flights down to Vegas where people have had too
started the
many.
party early.
I was not
Yeah.
one of them. I
That's
was
good.
with people who were them, but I wasn't.
You chose to
one
be
of
more
them.
responsible?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
So what else? We're talking about the ticket counter, construction, things like that. The TSA change coming
Changeover.
next week. Yeah. Anything else moving and shaking at the airport here in the next few months?
The next few months we're going to be finishing up. We're rebuilding the walkways out front. We'll be starting on the canopies. We're going to rebuild the covered walkway out front. Some new signage. We're taking down all the old airport signage, putting up some new signage on the front of the building. Quite a bit's happening in terms of development. You'll see on the back of the building we've got some construction. We're expanding our ramp where the airplanes park out that way. Quite a lot's happening. We just got some new TSA screening machines for your bag, so you don't have to take out your laptop any longer. You can
that's
leave
nice.
you can leave your liquids in there. Of course, still 1 quart bag, 3.2 ounce, a piece, and then 1 quart bag, one per person. But you can leave that
But
in
it can
there.
stay in the regular bag.
Yes,
Okay.
Yeah,
That's
and
helpful.
so those machines are great. They're again still learning curve, right? They're new to
Yeah.
the employees, so they're looking at these enhanced images, and it takes them a little bit longer because they see much more than they used to. And
Yeah.
so, there's a lot of things happening and some improvements coming our way. So.
Yippee.
Yeah. All good stuff.
So now is the time to book your flight to Great Falls.
Yes. I also think that there's this misconception of like if I've had friends come visit or, I say I'm going to come visit somewhere else. Like I think people don't think that Great Falls has an airport or has a international, like full functioning, very
Real
good
airport.
real airport because they think Montana, remote, rural, you got to drive hours and hours. And it's like, no, this is like the easiest airport experience. And it's right here. It's not some, they're smaller planes, but it's not some, puddle jumper or something. So I think people don't realize like, yes, we have a very legitimate, well-run airport in our town.
Well, and that is usually the question. Like, if it's not,
Like, where should I fly into?
how far away is your airport?
Yeah.
They'll ask the question of where do you fly into?
Yeah.
And we say Great Falls,
said
and
that,
they
and
look
then-
at us and they're like, really? Yep.
I've had people
Right into the town.
Yeah, when they're like, "Oh, is that the closest?" Yeah, the Great Falls International Airport, that's like a mile outside of town, is the closest to where I live. Yes.
The Great Falls International Airport is the closest to Great Falls,
Yep.
Montana.
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean, it
weird.
sounds silly, but that's it's something I've been asked. Like, "Oh, is that the
Yep.
closest?"
It is.
Yep, it's real. It's right here. Yeah. Any other weird misconceptions that people have that you think about the Great Falls Airport?
No, I mean, you always get those questions that surprise you.
Yeah.
I mean, you're like, wow, where did that come from? But I had somebody a couple weeks ago that was asking me about flying, and they hadn't flown in a long time, and they were concerned about their safety, so they wanted to take a hunting knife.
Oh.
Like, well, can I take my hunting knife? Like, no, of course you can't take a hunting knife.
You can check it in your bag.
Right,
correct?
you could if you wanted
Yeah.
to. I would really leave that at home.
Yeah. Yeah. Can't
There's
bring
just
that on the
certain
plane.
things you shouldn't bring.
Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, airports are safe places. It's unlikely you'll get jumped on your connecting flight. So
Right.
that's
Yes. There's plenty of other people around too. Yeah.
That is probably my biggest pet peeve when I fly is like missing a plane in Denver or Salt Lake.
Yeah.
You're not connecting when you get here. Like, they're
Right.
just wait for
just
us.
wait.
Yeah.
Please just wait for
Yeah.
us.
I on my last one back, I sprinted because it was like an hour and a half late out of the other one, and
I was
And-
seconds late one time in Salt Lake City. They had just shut the door, and they're like, "Well, I'm sorry, we can't reopen the door." I'm like, "But you can.
but you can because this is the last flight. Nothing's happening. Yeah.
You're not connecting in Great Falls to anything. Like,
Right.
that's your end destination. Just let me.
Yeah.
Just let me on."
And they do
oddly enough,
sometimes.
John, no amount of complaining got them to open that door. It was really weird.
I've been when we've had groups, they do.
Oh,
wait
bigger
for us.
groups?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and really, I think since pandemic, the airlines have been better about that because
Sure.
they realize now more people are traveling for leisure, and so
Mhm.
they really are trying to get everybody that they can get.
Yeah.
There. It still does happen. The biggest problem is some rules changed a few years ago, and so the pilot at 10 hours of work, has
Oh.
to stop working, and so. If they're getting under what it's going to take to get to Great Falls, under that that limit, they may end up timing out the crew, and so that is what they're up against. Is those pilots? I mean, nowadays especially, they're using them all 10 hours they can use
Yeah.
them. And generally speaking, when they get to Great Falls, it's the end of their day.
Yeah.
And so they need to get them here.
That's
Within
good
that 10-hour window.
perspective. That's good to keep in mind.
That's good insight for prima donnas like me who are just stomping their foot. Like, you're not connecting anywhere. You can just wait.
And they're like, no, we really can't. We have to be done. Yeah. Which is good for everybody. Safe, like not extremely tired pilots is a good thing.
Yeah. Sober and untired pilots.
Yep.
All
We like
big
that.
thumbs up.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, John, for being on here.
Yeah, thank you.
In summary, you can fly into Great Falls.
We
you
have all the things.
You can rent a car.
Yep.
You can go explore and experience.
And you can be in town in, 60 seconds after landing.
All fun stuff. Take your time, mosey a little bit once you get off the plane.
Yep.
Enjoy the gift shop. Enjoy the fireplace. All things before you get to baggage claim.
Take your selfie with the
Yep.
grizzly.
With the bear, yeah, absolutely.
So, listen to this podcast often. We
Come
are
back,
just
revisit it.
helpful tips all the way around. And until we see your bright, smiling face here in our community, we hope you're creating amazing memories with your family and friends wherever you are. We'll see you soon.
We're no damn experts as the recorded claims from Great Falls, Montana, covering what you need to know about this amazing damn town. Damn, that felt good.